And so our next speaker, I've spoken a little bit about previously, is Lui Santi. So Lui Santi, as I said, is a patient who is currently in treatment. He is stage 4. He is a member of the Missionaries of the Precious Blood. He ordained, served in the parish ministry, appointed to the seminary, and he's a hospital chaplain at Sunnybrook and Humber River hospitals. While he was in active ministry, he was suddenly diagnosed with stage 4 gastric stomach cancer at age 60. He is currently being treated with immunotherapy. Yay. He has learned acceptance and moving on, which motivates him to live each day with his family and friends. And in what little I know of Louis, that is incredibly true. So he lives in Toronto, and he says he's a connoisseur of apple pie and enjoys life. So please welcome Lui Santi.
Good morning. I know there's light out there. Okay. I tend to be soft-spoken. If you can't hear me, just raise your hand, and I'll just raise my volume. Also, I had treatment yesterday, so if I tend to slur my words, you know why. I should be in bed today, but I thank Teresa for asking me to be here. Real an honor and privilege. I need to preface my presentation this morning, my reflection that comes from a Catholic Christian experience perspective. It's the core of who I am and what gives me hope to live with cancer. And I'm in no way implying, no hidden agenda, that I'm going to convert you to be Catholic today. Okay. In addition, I wish to emphasize and underline, I have complete confidence and great respect for the sciences and the medical research being done in discovering new therapies in dealing with cancer. Without their help and their assistance in the medical world, many of us would not be able to live and survive and live each day with cancer. A few months ago, Teresa called me. If you know Teresa, you just can't say no. And she called 2 days later, says, "Are you made a decision? On what?" I says, "The presentation." And I hesitated again. I says, "What do you really want me to say?" And she said a key word, "What gives you hope?" I said, "Okay, I can speak on that." Life offers us many choices. We can either accept or refuse what comes before us. The image of driving, I like to use the image of driving on a road when one arrives at a fork, at a crossword. At one point, one needs to decide which road to take. Either road will present itself with unforeseen turns, roadblocks, and setbacks. One takes the road with a certain level of confidence, and that the road will go without any further interruptions. However, life in driving is being open to what may come. The famous poet, U.S. poet, Maya Angelou, said, "If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude." When a sudden change occurs in one's life, it's not always easy to welcome this newness and becomes part of our journey. But one has to find the positive events in the negatives, and this helps to get through the difficulties. What gives me hope to live with cancer? I had to go through a series of steps, both physical, emotional, and spiritual. The first step I had to go through was acceptance. Acceptance takes time and arrives with a listening heart. And life is filled with many unexpected, harsh surprises, and being able to embrace them with a spirit of acceptance, it makes the process of disbelief more manageable. being diagnosed with cancer and undergoing through vigorous regimens, as many of us may know, with their days ahead filled with appointments with doctors, nurses, social workers, dietitians, blood work, assessments, chemo days, setbacks, radiation, weakness, fatigue, nausea, vomiting, lack of appetite, fear and anxiety, and more can be overwhelming. An openness to what may come is living with an attitude and a spirit of acceptance. And life is accepting to new situations. The Latin word for acceptance is apicere, meaning taking something to oneself. And to capire, take, as one accepts, we receive the take, what is being offered. For example, in receiving, we also consent in receiving with something what is being given to us. When we offer a gift, a gesture of kindness, we welcome and accept this token of thoughtfulness with openness. Not to suggest that cancer is a gift, but learning to accept it. The next step, I had to learn how to let go, and letting go for acceptance to become real. Letting go of what we are familiar and secure requires patience and trust. Security is our safety net, and letting go of the unusual activities involves a great amount of trust and confidence in ourselves, in the medical world, and in God. Believing that God is with us in this new journey and walks with us in this new road which is before us. We have a strong and loving God who created us. Therefore, he knows us well. He knows what we can endure, and he will not put us in any situations we cannot handle. Our consent is to receive what is happening and to accept and to say yes to this new journey, new road. By letting go, deeming trust gives us the courage and resilience, who in turn sustains us and nourishes us with even more strength to hope and an increase of courage to let go. At that point, I had to go through another struggle where my faith and human spirit were dancing together. As we welcome the spirit of letting go, which is in essence a complete surrender, and for me, surrendering to the illness to God. And the human spirit gives approval that I need to lean upon someone else other than myself. In this humble surrender of the spirit, of the intellect, emotion, and physical well-being, one embarks on a road of healing. And as we surrender to God for clarity, we put aside our own selfishness and our own ego. In surrendering to God, or the Creator, confirms the words of Jesus, "Be not afraid." And with the words of Jesus in surrendering to God, the gift of fortitude is bestowed, which allows one to endure and surpass and accept moments of sorrow, of pain, and loneliness. And this ability in surrendering for help reveals a deep abiding respect for the God whom loves us in return. God empties our fears from our hearts and fills it with his abiding presence. This abandonment of a self and strengthens our relationship even more so with God. And this relationship renews our understanding that we are not alone. And in return, it is our respect which honors God who lives in each one of us. as God respects our free will, and we likewise entwine with his will, it makes the difficult tolerable. Surrendering is a deep leap of faith that he is there for us to lean upon. And the last step, fourth step that I had to arrive at, in the same way, by accepting to a new situation and the curveballs in life, it causes me to adapt to those new situations. Adapting to any change is being flexible and to meet the newness. If one resists or struggles to understand what is happening, then the inner struggle of mind and body and spirit lingers. And this perpetual unrest hurts the spirit, the soul, the body, which longs to be at peace. Accepting to something new is not easy. It is uncomfortable and frustrating because it is not part of the normal routine. Again, as one learns to adapt, being flexible to the present situation, and the spirit of acceptance balances the physical and the spiritual tension which may arise. This movement takes time. However, once wrestled with, peace is realized. Accepting to new realities initially can be emotionally and spiritually painful. And by recognizing, acknowledging, consenting, affirming, and adapting leads to the grace moments of acceptance. And in this spirit, one is willing to tolerate and live the difficult situations with ease. As human beings, we all have hope. It's part of our human nature that's within us. And the Christian hope is underlying force how we live each day. And hope dispels fear because we learn to lean and cling onto someone bigger than myself for strength and for courage. And living with hope, it frames the mind, gladdens the heart, revives the spirit, and nudges one to remember that we are people of hope. We live in possibility. We confide in God's presence, and we believe that God doesn't abandon us at all in our need. Joseph Ratzinger reminds us that life will not end in emptiness. The one who has hope lives differently. The one who hopes has been granted the gift of new life. Now that all sounds good, doesn't it? All these 4 steps. And I began to think, and I scratched my head and during my moments of chemo and sitting there by myself, perhaps the body does not need a cure. The physical body has its own rhythm and nature, and it takes its course. And our lifespan is unknown. Only God is privy to the number of years given to us to live. If a physical cure is not deemed, and which is clearly not a lack of God's love for us, perhaps a healing is needed, and this is attainable. Our faith, whatever faith denomination we have, may not necessarily restore our health, but it does change our lives. This change is a healing. Normally, we tend to ask for a doctor for a physical cure. Perhaps what we truly need is healing of emotions, from fear, from anxiety, to hopelessness, and from worries. Our God wants us to touch us, invite us to be free from the inner brawl and to struggle to the peace which resides within our hearts. Our God wants us to keep us inviting him into our own lives, in our own prayer, meditation, whatever form that we have, with complete trust. As we do, we make ourselves open and available to whatever he wants us to do in us, because it eases our worries and calms our spirit. Throughout my illness, I never specifically asked for a cure, but I sought for healing. Here I am, Lord. You give me what I need. In other words, your will be done. Not an easy step to get to, but possible. The healing lies in a complete surrender to God, that I find the courage and the hope to endure and to continue in whatever presents itself each day. There comes a time when to hope and to know when to let go, and the wisdom and the courage when to stop and to accept the unchangeable. I've met this illness with courage, and I'm blessed to have lived and continue to live a very good life with a few hand of dedicated family and friends who've helped me, support me in my suffering, physical and emotional pain. As I live each day with a deep sense of peace and openness to what comes each day, I'm very fortunate. My misfortune became a great moment of renewal. No one rejoices in illness, but the lesson learned is that I cannot always be what I want to be or how I wanted. I never felt deflated throughout this whole process of my illness, and people around me have always encouraged me in their own ways and own words. And they would say, you would fight it, we'll fix it, you can do it, hang in there. Sometimes I don't like those words. They don't mean much to me. They're empty. Not fixing it. But I simply acknowledge that my limitations, and that's okay, not wanting to fix it. Let nature play its course. In being at peace when experiencing pain and discomfort at times, I do not see it as a failure, rather to surrender and to accept. And by acceptance, there is peace, there is healing. When a storm comes in our lives, if a serious illness or a death or some difficult moments, even perhaps in our own lives, in good situations, God can prevent the storm from happening, but he does not. He allows the storm to take place, to continue. God uses these events for the greater good. Does it make me a wiser person? Am I more compassionate, more trusting? Am I more aware of his love and presence in my life or people in my lives? His protection is not to remove the illness, but rather to be open and open my mind and heart that I'm not alone. He cares for us, and he's right there next to me. And we can understand ourselves better, who I am, patience and being hopeful requires us to collaborate, to listen, and to be humble. In cooperating with God's will, your will be done. Listen to his voice, which asks us to discern and to learn. And humility, because we do not fully understand how the cancer came and how it will be resolved, but we are assured that we're not alone in this journey. When I was diagnosed with stomach cancer, the doctor very frankly and openly and directly shared the news from the discoveries of the medical procedures. He said, "Mr. Santi, you have a growth in your stomach. It is clearly cancer." My acceptance to this new adventure, which I was to embrace from that very moment, filled my heart with the spirit to let go. I surrendered totally and with complete confidence in his love and care. This is living not only with cancer, it is living with hope. Living with cancer is a journey that includes days of spiritual, emotional dryness. Strength is sought in meditation and prayer, and is vital to allow your friends who want to walk with us so that we can be anew. It does lighten our journey quite a bit, and to allow them into our lives. It's very easy to push them away. And it's important to shed tears, very important to shed tears, and to laugh at yourself. We learn to trust in God and in yourself, because there's much more in us that we can do it. And this helps to endure the difficult days. And the driving force in this journey is to remain hopeful. Hope. And to indulge in a weekly piece of apple pie and to sweeten the difficult days.